Look closely, because everything you think is, you might just be the chains you were taught to wear, the guilt you carry installed, the urge to explain yourself. Conditioned. That voice in your head telling you to be polite, to forgive, to wait your turn. That isn't wisdom. It's programming. From the moment you entered this world, they began shaping you not to be powerful, but to be manageable, to be agreeable, predictable, soft. They applauded your patience while feeding off your silence. They called it kindness while secretly using it as leverage. You were trained to tolerate disrespect, to shrink when you're doubted, to confuse virtue with obedience. And they did it well, because now most people don't even realize they were built to serve. But here's the shift. The most dangerous transformation doesn't begin with rage. It begins with realization. The moment you stop apologizing for breathing, the moment you stop needing permission to walk away, the moment you stop caring who misunderstands you, that's when fear shifts. That's when they start to feel it. Not because you became cruel, but because you became untouchable. This isn't about revenge. It's not about hurting others. It's about no longer allowing yourself to be hurt, no longer handing people the script to manipulate your emotions, your time, your identity. You see, Machiavelli didn't write for the naive. He wrote for the few who are willing to walk away from comfort and reclaim the power stolen from them through smiles, myths, and moral fairy tales. So if you've ever felt invisible, dismissed, used good, that pain is fuel. Because what comes next will not be about becoming better. It will be about becoming dangerous. Not to others, but to everything that once controlled you. Stay until the end. Because after this, you won't go back. You weren't born apologizing. You weren't born afraid to speak. You weren't born walking on eggshells just to make others comfortable. That version of you, the one who hesitates before saying no, who forgives too easily, who stays silent to avoid conflict, was built, not born. Every layer of weakness you carry today was carefully taught to you by people who benefited from your submission. They made you feel guilty for wanting more. They called your strength arrogance. They called your silence maturity. But it was never about virtue. It was about control. You learned to lower your voice so others could feel louder. You were praised for being easygoing, but they never told you it was because you were easy to manipulate. Every compliment was a leash. Every lesson came with invisible strings. And you didn't see it because they dressed it up in love. Be a good kid. Don't talk back. Be nice even when you're hurt. Forgive even when they never asked. Obey even when you know it's wrong. That's not character. That's conditioning. Machiavelli saw it centuries ago. He warned that societies don't need brave citizens. They need obedient ones. Submissive minds are easier to govern, easier to tax, easier to keep quiet. So they strip you young, not with violence but with bedtime stories. The lie that goodness is rewarded, that humility always wins, that being liked is the highest goal. They don't teach you power, they teach you performance, and the cost, you become so used to minimizing yourself that you forget you ever had sharp edges. You confuse silence with peace. You confuse kindness with surrender. But deep down there's a fracture, a burning frustration that whispers, "This is not who I'm supposed to be." That whisper, that's the part of you they couldn't kill. And now, it's waking up. This chapter is not about blaming the past. It's about exposing it. Because until you recognize that your weakness was installed, you'll keep trying to improve what was never yours to begin with. You'll keep fixing chains instead of breaking them. But once you see it clearly, the whole game changes. The way you speak, the way you walk, the way you exist, no longer out of guilt, but out of command. This isn't self-help. This is self-recovery. And this is where you begin. Power doesn't begin when you shout louder. It begins the moment you stop justifying your existence. The day you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation for your silence, for your distance, for your refusal to play along, that's the day everything shifts. Because when you stop asking for permission to be yourself, you stop being predictable. And in a world that thrives on controlling you, unpredictability is power. They've spent years teaching you that you need to explain your boundaries, to soften your no, to cushion your truth, with 1,000 apologies. But every time you explain yourself to someone who never earned your truth, you give them leverage. Every time you try to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you, you give them control. And when you finally stop doing that, when you simply say no without guilt, when you walk away without fanfare, when you stop showing up for people who never showed up for you, something primal happens. People get uncomfortable. They feel the vacuum. And in that silence, they feel your shift. It's not anger they sense, it's sovereignty. And to the ones who depended on your softness, your silence now feels like a threat. Not because you became cruel, but because you finally became unavailable. This is the first reversal of power. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't flinch. The kind that terrifies people used to your compliance. It's when you stop trying to be liked and start commanding presence, not by forcing it, by becoming so rooted in who you are that approval becomes irrelevant. Machiavelli didn't write for the nice man who waits to be accepted. He wrote for the man who moves without permission. The one who understands that power isn't given, it's taken by those who stop asking for it. The truth is, you don't need closure. You don't need validation. You don't need to be understood. You need clarity. And clarity begins with silence, with stillness, with unapologetic presence. Because the moment you stop reacting to the world and start commanding your own, people will notice. They won't know what changed, but they'll feel it. And when they do, they'll either adjust or disappear. Either way, you win. They didn't enslave you with chains. They enslaved you with ideas. And the worst part, you believed them, because they dressed the lies in comfort, in morality, in hope. And by the time you realized something was wrong, you were already kneeling, quiet, polite, patient, and powerless. These weren't just harmless cliches. They were weapons, subtle, repeated, whispered into your psyche until you thought they were your own beliefs. But now you're about to see them for what they truly are, illusions designed to keep you obedient. The first lie, kindness will save you. They told you that being good, being forgiving, being endlessly patient would eventually be rewarded. That if you just kept turning the other cheek, the world would eventually recognize your worth. But they didn't tell you what Machiavelli knew, that power doesn't reward morality. It rewards utility, strategy, strength. In a world ruled by ambition, kindness without boundaries isn't noble. It's a neon sign that says, use me. The second lie, be patient. Your time will come. But time isn't your ally. It's your assassin. While you hesitate, someone colder, hungrier, and more ruthless is claiming the very thing you're waiting for. They don't wait. They take. And by the time you're ready, it's already gone. Then comes the third lie. We are all equal. No, we are not. Equality is a fantasy sold to the masses, so they stay passive, so they stay small. The truth is brutal, some lead, some follow. And if you don't choose your place, it will be chosen for you. The fourth lie is stability. They told you to chase it. The job, the salary, the predictable life. But what they never said was that stability breeds softness, and softness kills drive. When your days become too safe, your instincts rot. Lions become lapdogs. Power dies in comfort. And finally, the most poisonous lie of all, guilt. Guilt for wanting more. Guilt for walking away. Guilt for cutting off dead weight. But guilt is not morality. It's a leash. Designed to keep you small, afraid, and apologetic for simply protecting your peace. These lies were never truths. They were systems. Systems to keep you waiting, quiet and obedient. But now you see them. And once you see a cage, you can never pretend it's a sanctuary again. So burn the script. The world doesn't need your obedience. It needs your awakening. We've been told that weakness is human, that it makes you relatable, lovable, even noble. But in the cold, strategic reality of life, weakness isn't something to be embraced. It's something to be hunted. not just by others, but by yourself. Because the truth is, this weakness is not a flaw, it's a signal. And in a world ruled by power, that signal tells others exactly how to break you. Weakness doesn't always look like fear. It's more deceptive than that. It's indecision. It's the fear of saying no. It's the need to explain your boundaries to people who disrespect them. It's your overthinking, your hesitation, your apologies for simply existing in your full form. Every time you bite your tongue instead of standing your ground, you think you're being mature, but what you're actually being is manageable. And the world is designed to reward those who can manage you. Worse, weakness becomes addictive. You begin to call it morality. You convince yourself that your suffering is a form of righteousness, that turning the other cheek makes you stronger. But that's the illusion. You've mistaken endurance for power, but endurance without action is submission, and submission without clarity is self-erasure. You see, people don't stay weak because they enjoy it. They stay weak because it's familiar. Because weakness doesn't ask you to take risks. It doesn't demand confrontation. It gives you the illusion of safety while quietly stealing your freedom. And comfort is the softest killer of all. It rocks you to sleep while life passes you by. It makes you tolerate what should have been cut off. It tells you maybe next time, while someone else claims what you hesitated to take. But here's the part. They don't want you to realize weakness is not who you are. It's who you were trained to be. It was installed, nurtured, repeated, rewarded, and now it's your job to kill it. That begins with radical honesty. Name the parts of yourself that flinch, that hesitate, that seek approval. Point to them, not with shame, but with clarity. And then make the most important decision of your life. Either you destroy your weakness, or your weakness will destroy you. There is no third option. Because in the jungle of power, no one cares about your intentions. They only respond to your strength or your silence. Weakness doesn't begin in your body. It begins in your reactions. The moment your emotions become visible, they become ammunition. And the world, cold, sharp, and unapologetically strategic, will not hesitate to use them against you. Every time you get provoked, you become predictable. And every time you're predictable, you become controllable. Think about it. What happens when they know what makes you angry? They poke it. When they know what makes you insecure, they weaponize it. If they know what you crave, approval, love, closure, they dangle it in front of you like bait, and you chase it. Not because you're weak by nature, but because no one ever taught you how to stay unreadable. This is the shift. Emotional control isn't about suppression, it's about power. The power to pause when others explode. The power to observe without announcing your thoughts. The power to let others underestimate you because you never reveal your cards. People don't fear loudness, they fear stillness. Because stillness signals calculation. And the calculated man is dangerous. He doesn't move impulsively, he moves with purpose. Every reaction must serve strategy. If it doesn't serve your elevation, it is a trap. You don't react to insults. You don't flinch at disrespect. You don't over-explain when misunderstood. Why? Because those who react out of emotion always lose to those who move with intention. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to win leverage. And leverage comes from discipline, not volume. Machiavelli understood this. He didn't teach princes to be expressive. He taught them to be unreadable, to move in silence, to observe everything but reveal nothing. Because in silence there is control, and in control there is dominance. So the next time you feel the urge to lash out, to defend, to prove something, pause. Ask yourself one question. Will this make me more powerful or more predictable? If the answer is the latter, do nothing. Let others perform. Let them reveal their emotional openings. And you remain still, cold, calculating. Because true power is not loud, it's surgical. And the man who masters his reactions doesn't just survive, he dominates. Not through chaos, but through calm. Not through noise, but through quiet moves that shift everything. Let them guess. Let them squirm. Let them speak too much. You will only move when it's time to win. Every chain that binds you, every silent force that controls your decisions is forged through attachment. The need to be liked, the desire to be understood, the fear of being alone. These aren't just emotions. They are weapons others use to hold you in place. And the cruelest part, most people never realize they're being owned until it's too late. But if you want to become truly powerful, you must tear the roots out, because what owns your heart owns your mind. People sense when you're afraid to lose them. And the moment they do, the power dynamic shifts. Not with shouting, not with demands, but with quiet manipulations. They'll push your boundaries. They'll test your silence. They'll cross lines not to hurt you, but to see if you'll stay. And if you do, they've won. Not because they're stronger, but because you're attached. Machiavelli understood that the man who needs nothing cannot be dominated. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. Detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self-respect. The man who can walk away without guilt, without second thoughts, without emotional collapse, is the man others can't control. They'll call him cold, selfish, ruthless. But in truth, he's free. You must detach from more than just people. Detach from your image, from the need to be seen as good, the pressure to be liked, the addiction to applause. You bend your character trying to fit into rooms you should be commanding. You hide your edge to keep others comfortable. But what has that earned you? Approval or quiet resentment for abandoning your truth? Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant. Let them gossip. Your value is not measured by their comfort, it's measured by your freedom. Because the more you cling, the more they control. And the more you release, the more you rise. Detachment is the ultimate form of power. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose what gets your energy, what gets your loyalty, what gets your presence. You do not owe your availability to people who drain your fire. You do not owe your explanations to people who doubt your silence. You owe yourself one thing: sovereignty. When you can let go of anything, you become the thing no one can let go of. Not because you chased, but because you never had to. Before power can live in you, something must die. And not something external, something internal. The version of you that begged to be chosen. The version that shrank to make others feel comfortable. The version that stayed quiet to keep the peace. That version was never strong. It was just survivable. And survival is not the same as sovereignty. If you want to rise, that softer self, the one built from fear, guilt, and people-pleasing, must be burned at the root. This is not cruelty. This is transformation. You cannot become the storm while still clinging to your own leash. The leash of old narratives, old names, old habits. You keep saying you've changed, but you still carry the instincts of the person you used to be, the one who said yes when they wanted to scream no, the one who swallowed pain to be polite, the one who tolerated crumbs just to not be alone. That version was useful once. It kept you safe when you didn't know how to defend yourself. But now, it's keeping you small. Burn it. Stop romanticizing who you were when you were still operating from survival mode. Stop defending the habits that made you easy to manipulate. Start killing the parts of you that apologize for existing too loudly, too powerfully, too independently. Because until you do, the world will keep treating you like the weaker version you haven't fully buried. This death won't be soft. It will be cold, quiet, necessary. You'll feel the grief of letting go, but what you're letting go of was never your truth. It was your training. You were taught to be pleasing, not powerful. Trained to be agreeable, not unstoppable. The soft version of you was built to be consumed. The new version must be built to command. So don't just reinvent yourself. Exterminate the past version entirely. Let it rot. Let it scream. Let it die in the fire of your new clarity. Because only in that fire can the sharpness of who you truly are begin to forge. This isn't reinvention for appearance. This is a psychological death and rebirth. And when you rise from it, no one, not your past, not your fears, not even your name, will have authority over you again. The man you used to be was breakable. The man you're becoming is the weapon. Most men think power is about dominance, force, loudness. But Machiavelli knew better. True power doesn't shout, it doesn't flinch, and it certainly doesn't react. It calculates. And in a world where everyone is emotionally hijacked by every insult, every rejection, every shift in tone, the man who remains still becomes a force of nature. Emotional control isn't just a discipline, it's your weapon, your shield, and your psychological advantage. When they expect rage, give them silence. When they expect a response, give them a blank stare. When they want to push your buttons, let them press and realize there's nothing behind them. You don't flinch because you've burned what made you flinch. You've seen what happens when people wear their heart on their sleeve. They become puppets, easily pulled by anyone who knows the right emotional string to tug. You're not that man anymore. Emotions aren't evil, but they are not meant to steer the ship. They're signals, not orders. Anger can alert you, but don't let it drive you. Hurt can teach you, but never let it dictate your next move. Those who act from feeling are predictable, and what is predictable is exploitable. But when you use emotion as a mask, not a guide, you become unreadable, dangerous, unbreakable. Smile when they want to fight. Be still when they expect a breakdown. Withdraw when they prepare for confrontation. That calm presence, that ice behind the eyes, that's what unnerves them. Because now you're playing a different game. You don't react to chaos, you orchestrate it. Machiavelli never advised princes to love their people blindly. He told them to control perception, to appear merciful when it served them, but to act with ruthless logic underneath. Be warm in appearance, cold in execution. Let people see the mask they don't need to see the machinery behind it. Because the man who controls his emotions doesn't just win arguments, he wins power structures. He walks through betrayal with a straight spine. He handles loss without crumbling. He watches enemies fall into their own traps because he never stepped into them emotionally. So here's your shift. Stop leaking your emotions to people who haven't earned access. Start weaponizing your energy. Because in this world, the calmest man in the room is always the one who knows something no one else does. That control isn't something you take from others. It's something you never gave away in the first place. You don't need to raise your voice to shake a room. You don't need to issue threats to be feared. You don't need to chase approval to feel worthy, because when you truly detach from needing anything, you become the consequence. You don't explain. You don't argue. You don't justify. You simply move, and everything moves with you, or gets left behind. There comes a point in your transformation where your presence no longer asks for attention, it commands it. Not because you're loud, but because you're silent in a way that rattles the room. People feel it. They can't describe it, but they know. They sense the shift. The energy that used to be open and available now closed. Guarded. Purposeful. You don't flinch. You don't chase. And most of all, you don't tolerate what you used to excuse. You were once the man who over-explained, who softened his tone so others wouldn't feel threatened, who gave second, third, even 10th chances to people who never respected the first. But that man is gone. And in his place stands something sharper, colder, not broken but forged, not reckless but precise. You are no longer here to prove your worth. You are no longer trying to convince anyone to stay. If they leave, let them. If they doubt you, let them. Because your value isn't up for negotiation. You are the shift. And for those who took you for granted, your silence is the sentence. Your absence is the punishment. They thought you'd always be available. They depended on your reaction, your forgiveness, your understanding. And now that it's gone, they're left with a void. Not because you shouted louder, but because you didn't say a word. You withdrew. Strategically, fully. And that silence. It echoes louder than all their noise combined. You no longer need recognition. You've become something rarer, a reminder of what they lost, a reminder of what they'll never get access to again. And you carry that reminder not with bitterness, but with stillness. Because the most powerful man in the room isn't the one who demands attention. It's the one who doesn't need to be seen to be felt. And that's who you've become, not the argument, not the apology, but the consequence they never saw coming. This rise wasn't announced. It wasn't loud. It didn't beg to be noticed. It happened in silence in the shadows while the world assumed you were still the man they used to manipulate. But something shifted, slowly, brutally, beautifully. And now, you're no longer becoming powerful. You are power. You didn't just detach from people. You detached from the illusion that you needed to explain yourself. You no longer chase peace, you've become peace. A stillness so complete that it disorients those who used to thrive on your chaos. You don't fight for control anymore because you own the one thing that cannot be stolen: control over yourself. And in that mastery, you've become untouchable. They don't know what happened to you. They can't place the moment you changed, but they feel it. You walk differently now. You speak less but say more. You enter a room and bring gravity, not noise. While others perform for attention, you simply exist, and it's enough to shift the atmosphere. You no longer ask, "What will they think?" Now they ask, "What will he do?" This isn't arrogance, it's earned authority. You paid for it with every boundary you enforced, every silence you held, every emotion you swallowed so you could stay focused. You killed the part of yourself that used to flinch, apologize, chase. And in its place, you built a presence that doesn't explain it. Commands. And they'll call it cold. They'll say you've changed, that you've hardened. Let them. Because they don't understand that what they're really feeling isn't your distance, it's their loss of control. The access they once had has been revoked. And not out of spite, out of evolution. You've become the man who can't be baited, can't be shaken, can't be pulled back into the games of the weak. And that terrifies people, because they rely on others to feel whole. You don't. You've learned to walk alone. You've made your solitude your fortress, and that solitude has made you lethal. You no longer move to be seen. You move to shift outcomes. You no longer react, you redirect. And in a world that demands you perform for validation, you've done the unthinkable, you stopped performing. You became the presence that no one can predict, no one can control, and no one can touch. The deepest lesson from this message isn't just about dominance or appearing strong. It's about reclaiming what was taken from you quietly, your permission to own yourself. You were trained to seek approval, to over-explain, to soften your presence so others could stay comfortable. But the truth is, the more you need from others, the easier you are to control. Real power starts when you stop leaking your energy into the hands of people who haven't earned it. It begins when you master your emotions, not by suppressing them, but by directing them with purpose. In every moment, you feel the urge to prove yourself, to respond, to explain. Pause. That pause is your first act of control. And control over time becomes freedom. Detach not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Stop fearing silence. Let it sharpen you. Let it expose who respects your boundaries and who only stayed for your obedience. You don't need to be loud to be respected. You don't need to be liked to be remembered. You just need to move with such emotional discipline that people feel your presence even when you say nothing. In life, business relationships, or leadership, the person who controls themselves controls the room, and the man who no longer fears being misunderstood becomes unbreakable. Let go of the need to be accepted. Focus instead on being undeniable. So if this message shifted something in you, good. That discomfort you feel, that's not fear, it's the old version of you resisting its own extinction. Let it burn. If this hit home, do more than just feel it, act on it. Subscribe for deeper strategies. Like this video if it spoke to something real in you. And share it with someone who needs to wake up from the life they were programmed to accept. This is not motivation. This is warfare of the mind. And it begins with you.